Okay. Good morning and good evening, guys. So welcome to this second Rex webinar that we called The Great Change. And we have 4 different parts, and the last is question and answers. So the first, I introduce the purpose of the webinar. Then we'll talk about what we are doing now. This is our tactics. Then we'll talk about strategies, what are we planning to do in the future. And then we have a question and answers. I'm Fausto Di Giulio, I'm from Italy, Abruzzo, that is in central Italy. And I usually introduce myself with 2 dates. One is 1990 when I opened my gym, and this year we celebrate our 38th year. And then the second date is 2010 when Will Phillips from Rex US asked me to launch Rex in Europe and Middle East. So these are the 2 dates, and also there is another 3rd date, but I'll tell this 3rd date in the next webinar in 2 Mondays. So now let's now get to know our speakers. Okay, let's start with Agusta. Agusta, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I'm happy to be here with you. My name is Agusta Johnson. I'm from Iceland. I run a health club in Iceland, Reykjavik, called Hreyfing. I've started it in 1986. The situation in Iceland is similar to other countries. We have had 2 weeks now, social restriction of 20 max people together in a room, and 2 meters of social distancing. So the health clubs have been closed for 2 weeks now, along with hair salons and restaurants and bars and so forth. And so and last Friday, our government announced a prolonged restriction until May 4th. So we are hoping we will be able to open our clubs then, hopefully, probably with some restrictions. But the situation all over in Iceland is under control as possible. We have 1,500 people infected and 25,000 have been tested. 6 deaths, unfortunately. And we are having good faith in our health authorities and think they're having a as good control of the things as possible.
Thank you very much, Augusto. So, you also know things very well because I know that your husband was Ministry of Health and now is Ministry of Foreign Affairs, right?
Yes, 10 years ago he was a Minister of Health, and now he's the Foreign Minister.
Okay, thank you very much, Augusta. Han,
thank you.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, I'm Han Doorenbosch from the Netherlands. I'm the CEO of the Urban Gym Group. We have 3 brands, Train More, High Studio, it's a boutique formula, and we have Club Sportive, it's one luxury health club. We, in the Netherlands, we are closed since 3 weeks. All the gyms are closed. We have not totally locked down, but people can go outside. So the whole day, I see everybody is working out outside with trainers or alone. The government make the decision until the end of April, but I expect they're gonna extend this. And maybe they will say, okay, we can open, but with more restrictions. That's what I think. But honestly, I think June or July, because it's still the numbers of affecting people are still changing every day. Some days it's decreasing and sometimes it's increasing. So it's not stable yet.
Okay, thank you, Han. Let's go to Ross.
Thanks, Fausto. Good evening, everyone. My name's Ross Campbell. I'm the CEO of Fit Summit here in Singapore. We're a business network that looks after fitness, wellness, and hospitality. I was a small boutique gym operator. I then lost my nerve and became a B2B consultant. In terms of Singapore, it's been a slow shutdown in the past few weeks here in Singapore, and as of tomorrow, it moves into a partial shutdown with all gyms closed, all sports facilities closed as well. That's mirroring the rest of Asia. At the moment, only Taiwan has gyms open across Asia. China is starting to reopen. Shanghai and Shenzhen have a handful of clubs open in the big box space, but this is still quite limited due to a lack of group fitness. So at the moment in Asia, we're pretty much on lockdown. And if I'm being pretty candid, I don't think any gym in Asia will open its doors for the rest of April.
Okay, thank you. Justin.
Thanks, Fausto, and I echo your thoughts for all those working on the front line. So my name's Justin, but only my mum calls me that. Most people call me JT, and I'm a 31-year veteran in our industry, 15 years as an owner and 15 years as an unemployed club owner, making me a consultant as well. I own Active Management. We've got a Facebook community which currently has over 2,000 gym owners and managers from all around the world. I also run Rex Roundtables in Australia, New Zealand, and now the US, which means I am now running 7 Zoom calls every single week, and we account for about 400 clubs. I also own the Fitness Business Podcast, which with Matthew, down the bottom there, we're the only 2 podcasts that you should be listening to on the planet, our 2 podcasts. What's been happening in Australia, clubs have been closed now for 2 weeks. We're told to expect to be closed for 6 months. I think that's worst case scenario, but we really don't know anything more than anybody else. Our major difference for Australia compared to the Northern Hemisphere is, of course, we're going into winter, which will help propagate any sort of flu-like virus. We've currently got about 5,500 cases and 40 people have passed away.
Okay, thank you. Matthew.
Hey, nice to meet everyone. My name is Matthew Januszek. I'm the co-founder of Escape Fitness. We operate directly in 4 markets around the world. We're in United Kingdom, we're in the United States, we're in Germany, and we're also in Thailand. And all of our markets on some level have been closed. I'm myself based in the United States. They've had for between about 2 to 3 weeks now, the majority of fitness clubs have been closed. Certainly, as of last night, that includes 42 states. In terms of when they're opening again, I think the feeling is end of April, although that's certainly not been confirmed yet. And the fitness clubs were one of the first businesses to start being closed when they tightened down the lockdowns. I think they've been the businesses that have probably been most affected by this. And finally, yeah, as Justin said, we also run an industry podcast where we speak to many operators and people within the industry about what's what they're going through at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hans.
Muench. I'm a Canadian by birth. I have a German passport. I've been living in Switzerland since 2014. Many people know me through the dozen years I worked for IRSA, the International Trade Association based in Boston, where I was the Director of International Development for 5 years, and for over 7 years I was the Director of Europe. So a lot of what I'm saying will be touching a number of markets, not just Switzerland, with some examples from France and from Germany and even a few other countries. I write for a few trade magazines. I teach part-time in the MBA program of the German university. So I have a fairly wide perspective. I also spent a dozen years on the supplier side with Life Fitness and Nautilus. And the suppliers are also suffering right now. I could give you a couple examples later. And this is, I think, my 4th or 5th webinar that I'm contributing, one this morning in German and it's great to be with such an esteemed panel of experts.
Thank you. Okay, last but not least, John Nasta from UK.
Well, thank you very much, Fausto. Thank you for having me on here. Great to be on a panel with such great people. Over here in the UK, we've got a business called Retention Solutions, which has specialised in automating touch points and gathering customer feedback and using that to make millions of members happy for hundreds and hundreds of health club clients. And up until last year, I also had the pleasure of being Director of Marketing and E-commerce for a low-cost, high-volume operator with 52 clubs and 350,000 members. So the situation over here in the UK is that as of yesterday, we had 48,000 confirmed cases, 4,900 deaths, and just yesterday, 5,900 new cases, which is the highest number yet. We've been on shutdown now for 2 weeks, and quite honestly, all my peer group, everyone we talk to, can't really see any clubs reopening until the start of June at the earliest. You are allowed out of the house for 1 hour a day for some exercise or essential shopping. We also have over 1 million people classed as high risk who've been asked to self-isolate for at least the next 12 weeks. So that's the position we're in over here at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Okay, let's now talk about tactics for shutdown. And Agusta, 2 minutes,
Yes.
2 minutes each to talk about what are you doing on countries, or what do you know around the world that could be helpful for all attendees that are watching us.
Yeah, well, in our club, we have tried to keep our contract, the members that have contract, keep them paying the monthly dues, and instead they get extension on the membership for the COVID period when the membership ends. We had about 3% of cancellations, and our staff is working 25%, and the government will pay 75% of their salary. So we were using this government solution for every employees except for 4 of our managers. So we have the staff working 10 hours per week, in the 25%. So we keep the club open for 4 hours a day, and we have the staff busy cleaning and doing maintenance and doing calls. I think it's very important to call the members, and we've had good success with that. The members are, many of them are supportive. You know, of course, the long-term members understand the situation. We are also doing some using this time for renovations, which is kind of very good time to do with the club closed, and we're emphasizing a lot of social media to try to stay in touch with our members, and trying to make them miss us a lot, so they will look forward to coming back when we open, hopefully soon. We've also produced 15 30-minute group fitness classes that we offer our members that are still paying. They can use access this online, and so they can have different variations of a group fitness class to do at home, and also some personalized trainerized workouts in the Trainerized app. And we found that our members really appreciate this and are using it. We've had thousands of views on this, and so we know that they're using it and they're happy with it. And we're also selling some home equipment that people can buy from our web store and to exercise at home. I think in the whole world, home exercise equipment is almost sold out. So everybody wants to buy some. We are, of course, cutting down every possible cost to save cash. The only thing we're really spending on is maintenance, and we think that's very important. We want to have everything in top situation when we reopen again. And we are also planning to, after Easter, since we have the extension of the closure, we are going to offer 3-week group fitness programs through like Zoom webinars, so we can start selling really something to try to get some cash. And yeah, so that's pretty much what we're doing at the moment.
Thank you very much, Agusta. Han.
Yes, from the day we closed, we had the opportunity to introduce online videos through our app. We pay some extra from it with our supplier, Facilitator Gym. So we provide now also workout videos. And what we do is also 3 times or 4 times a day on Instagram live. We organize classes, and we promote schedules on Instagram and in Facebook. We make some decisions. For the boutique, we can't collect any money because it's pay-per-use. But for the memberships, concepts like Train More and Club Sportive, we had decided to collect 50% of the membership fee. And the people can choose, the members, okay, I want this 50% back in 6 months, in 6 periods after the shutdown, or they can support us. And so far we have 18% of our members say, okay, we support you. And the other choose for 6 months pay back in discount. So, but we still get the cash. We cut down a lot of costs. We are in negotiation with our landlords. It's quite hard, this kind of negotiations, but we don't pay the rent so far. First, we want to know how long it will take, this shutdown. We look to our staff costs. The government has a special, they give us the money back for 80%, but we have to do a lot of paperwork for it, but we're going to do it. We also cut down traveling costs, bonus, flexible people, we cut it down. We make also negotiation with personal trainers and with physiotherapists. They pay only the health rent. For some, it's a problem for some small entrepreneurs. We stopped some investments, but for some new investments we already signed, we go on with to build. This moment we have 4 clubs already ready to open and are waiting to open if we are allowed to open again. Yeah, that's so far.
Thank you very much. Ross, you have a wide experience in all Asia, but not only Asia. What would you like to say to us?
Yeah, thanks, Fausto. When it comes to Singapore government have been very supportive with tax reliefs, wage subsidies, and other breaks and benefits. So if you're a Singapore-based operator, you're going to be better off than most of the other operators in Asia. That being said, across Asia, there's probably a dozen major club operators, and the rest of the other fitness industry is basically small to mid-size enterprises and boutiques. And they have the majority of their staff under freelance contracts or pay-as-you-go as for classes. Now, that's going to be a real interesting dynamic on how that unfolds, because they cannot be financially served. And as Hans just alluded to, there's no real cash flow coming in. What we have noticed is a couple of reflection points, and one of those is the gyms that have got used to being zero revenue businesses for the next couple of months have actually moved on quite quickly to proactively engage digital solutions and also innovate inside. A number of clubs have tried to keep open for as long as possible, and that burn in terms of patience and capital hasn't really put them any further forward, and the closures have now happened and they find themselves swimming backwards in the current, not really having any digital solutions. What's quite interesting to see again across Asia is how communication has been served to members. Some of the communication has been email only, which is quasi-effective. But reality is that very few companies have actually phoned all of their members, and very few have actually ever used video. So in terms of how do you gauge your community face-to-face and serve your members, nobody is actually really speaking to their members face-to-face. What tends to happen is the gym is closed and then they've sent an email, and at some point they can jump onto a digital solution. Now that's effective, but it's not optimal. But it's still an opportunity for operators to try and make sure they can connect one-on-one directly. And I suppose we'll talk a little bit later on about digital solutions as we see them here as well. But that's just my initial thoughts. I think we could do better when it comes to customer contact and membership engagement and bring them along that journey. Thanks, Fausto.
Justin, what's happening in Australia? What are they doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, interesting, Fausto. That's a good question. I think operators and staff are really struggling with the fact that they had their livelihood ripped from underneath their feet without actually having any say in it, and really no warning. Our government closed gyms at 9:25 on a Sunday night, or announced that they would be closed at 9:25 on a Sunday night and had to be closed by midday the next day. So there wasn't a lot of time really for people to get organised. And so a lot of owners and operators are going through similar emotions to, I guess, when someone passes away. They're on a roller coaster of emotions, and many of them are suffering, literally suffering grief, frustration, anger, and trying to get their head around having their livelihood taken from them. So operators these days, really not just in Australia, but also people that I'm speaking to in the US, they're cutting staff left, right and centre. They're rolling out online programs, they're virtual or they're streaming classes, and pretty much every single human probably in the industry around the world is operating purely on adrenaline, which, as we all know in the industry, is not healthy for anybody. So we're probably making ourselves just as sick as other people. But I think one of the most interesting things for me is that owners are lurching to ideas too fast with little to no strategic thinking and not understanding what the impact of decisions they're making today on their future business. I think the key here is their future business, no strategic thought on that. Let's just offer free online programs and we're going to have some problems in the future. And while this may be happening, here are three unique ideas that I've heard going around. One is a silent auction of goods, services and memorabilia to raise money to cover wages for staff who had been laid off. Number two, which is a good one, we must still nurture all of our prospects, even though the club is closed. Lots of clubs have forgotten that they have a whole list of prospects who were interested in joining before COVID closed us. And they've just forgotten to talk to these people. They're only talking to the members. And clubs all now have an online product, so they could be selling there. And number three is Facebook groups for communities based on zip or postal codes to be the hub for health and fitness for the community. These are being launched completely unbranded, and then with the phrase powered by the gym name rolled out when clubs will reopen. So it's very much an unbranded product or community group.
Thank you. Matthew, happening in the US, but not only US, you have a wide point of view.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things, and I can sort of speak to businesses of different sizes and positions, is, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been in my business for about 22 years now, and I think one of the things I've noticed is the majority of the businesses, certainly I've seen the figures in the USA, and the majority of them are sort of small to medium-sized companies, and owner operators, husband and wife, or a small group of partners, and I think, as Justin just mentioned, I think we forget about the impact that this has on people's mental well-being and mental fitness. And as a business leader, entrepreneur, responsible for a lot of people, when this suddenly happens, it's extremely difficult to know what to do. You've got pressure of your own family, you've got pressure of the people, you've got pressure of your members. And when it happens, as it has done in a lot of markets, it seriously takes you off your feet. And it's especially difficult because you're going into unknown territory. There isn't a playbook about this. There's no examples anywhere that people can look to and refer to in terms of what to do. So I think the first thing to be aware of, and I've certainly spoke to a lot of people about this, is get your own mental fitness right. And in a lot of cases, it's turning off the news because that's not certainly going to help improve that situation. I think if you do need to stay in touch, someone's going to tell you if the social distancing rules have changed pretty quickly. But try and just turn off from that and try and look at places like what's going on here. There's a ton of great things that people in the industry are doing, which is sharing information and providing practical knowledge on what to do. But I would say certainly, use that news time, or the social media time, to actually just get yourself in order, number one, because if you're not in that right place physically and mentally, anything else is going to be extremely difficult if you're not sleeping and you're worried. Once you've got to that position, I think certainly what we've done, and I spoke to a lot of people, is to get your war room together. Make sure you understand the people that you need to be in regular communication with, depending on the size of your business, whether it's a small local business or whether you're stretched in different areas. But just make sure that team communication is in process, and that you've got a good agenda, and you're able to solve a lot of the problems that need solving. And again, a lot of these questions that you're trying to answer, there isn't an answer for. You look at government, and in a lot of cases, a lot of countries, they're changing their mind on a regular basis. So it's very difficult to use that as something to base decisions on. But just make sure you've got a good round team with different perspectives to get the best answer that you think you can at that moment in time, and not be concerned that you can't come to a decision because there probably isn't an obvious one. You've just got to make your best decision within that moment. And then, the obvious one, I think, is thinking about cash, preserving cash, making sure that, you're not undercooking this, because it's unlikely it's going to return in exactly the same format as it did before, certainly in the short term. So just understanding what that could look like, and the different scenarios about when that sort of returns, so that you have got a business to bring people back to. I know in the US there's a number of different initiatives to support people that are out of work. I know the same is happening in the UK, although when it was first announced in the UK, the government did do a U-turn on what they originally said, and put that responsibility onto the employers. So, obviously make sure you've got some good connections with people in different government organizations or industry organizations to understand exactly what is available, so that you can make the right decisions for your team. And then probably, it doesn't always sit at the top of the list, but your partners, whether that's landlord or suppliers, it's crucial at these moments that you communicate to those as well as you do with your employees and your clients, because when this does return, and it will, everybody's going to be under the same position. We're all struggling for cash at the moment, and to sort of, you know, go silent and hope it will go away. Yes, that may seem like a good thing to do in the short term, but it's not going to help in the long term. So being, you know, getting on the phone, I've had a number of our partners that took the initiative and picked up the phone and explained exactly what was happening to them. And we talked about some suggestions about how we could work together, you know, one, whilst they're going through this period, and then how, you know, we can pick things up. So I think it's really important to have that communication. There's not going to be easy conversations to have, and there's not going to be obvious answers, but starting that conversation and starting to figure out a plan of what to do is really important. So hopefully those are some quick takeaways.
Thank you very much. Hans.
Okay, actually, I'd like to defer to John and go after John Nasta, because sometimes we talk about the same point. John, would you like to start? Just being courteous.
Oh, thanks very much, Hans. I was just thinking, and maybe pick up on what JT said, in that we're probably a little bit in front of the curve for some of the people I'm seeing on here. So we've had the two distinct phases already here. We definitely had phase one as panic, okay, absolute panic. And we suddenly discovered that we didn't know it, but we've actually got 10 million home fitness digital experts in the country already that have just been sitting there. And they have driven this mass panic to, and it's a word which I know has been bugging JT, and it's got me too, to pivot their offering to go online. So we've been counseling people that unless you can pivot into manufacturing toilet roll, probably the best first strategy you should do is look at what are your values. And we often say to people, you know, not all progress is going to be measured by ground gained. Sometimes progress is measured by losses avoided. And in terms of phase two, if you're clear on your strategy and you write it down and you make sure it reflects the values you had of your business before this started, then you're going to be in a stronger position during and after the shutdown. So in terms of looking after your members, people that know me know I often talk about finding out who your hero members are. So your hero members are going to be so important to you through this, and your hero members will need you. So just be consistent, be honest, be open in your communications. I've loved the way the High Studios in Amsterdam have been communicating with me. I do their workouts, I've done their online workouts. Messaging's very similar to what it was before the shutdown. And they're very clear on what they're offering me. You're not just providing an online workout for your members. You're providing a social base, you're providing interactions. If this social distancing is beginning to bug me, it's physical distancing, guys. It's not social distancing, okay? It's physical, not social. So if you're clear on the things that your health club's providing, if you're selling people a workout, fine, join in with everybody else. If you're selling them education, recognition, community, you're going to do much better. Don't just provide online workouts. Provide quizzes. Provide recipe sharing. Do the things you'd usually be doing and do them as you usually would do them. And in terms of the financial side of things, you know, maybe initially in your panic phase, you provided some online content for free. But again, don't rush at this. Use a platform where you can measure what you're providing, show results, monitor what your customers are doing, and then you're providing value, okay? A lot of people in webinars have been asking about, oh, I don't want to lose my members to their home fitness kit. Well, if they're turning to you for advice on how to use the home fitness kit, that's a great opportunity. And don't stress about everybody offering online content, because if they're not doing it with a proper platform in a proper manner, it's going to look pretty awful compared to what you're doing. So measure what you're doing and make sure you stick to your values, and what you're doing now will reflect your values. So in 7 years' time, when people talk about what's happened here, they're telling you the messages that you want to hear, not how you were just a panic and knee jerk and sorry to say it again, Justin, JT, stop the pivoting, okay? So hopefully, Hans, that's not taken all your ideas there, because I know we have discussed this quite a lot.
All right, thank you. And I will touch on a couple of those points when we talk about the channels. I agree. There are some clubs that are calling all of their members. If you have staff that are being paid, in the case of Germany, 75%, 60% of their wages being paid for by the government, use that time to stay in touch with the members. Another idea that I picked up on another webinar, there are some clubs that are helping seniors, their most vulnerable members, delivering food, developing a really good reputation in the community. Another point is, if you're not able to contact all of your members, make sure you touch on your influencers first, the high value customers, the people that are visiting a lot, that are out there also sharing their opinions on Facebook, on other social media. The differentiation of offers, I've seen best case or best practice having 3 different offers and encouraging people to go to the example of continuing to pay and supporting the staff. And I've seen digital programs being offered, whether it's Fit on Demand or Fit Snacks. There's a lot of different ones. I did a survey with the help of a 4,000 professional network in the German-speaking market, and asked 9 questions about their expectations about direct debits, paused memberships. If you're interested in this, I've got it in German, but I can translate it into English and make it available. For example, 78% of the clubs have asked for or applied for government support. In Germany, 32% of all the clubs have kept all of their staff, 20% only the full-time people. And that is actually the 2 minutes. I had more to say, but because we're getting late, I'm going to defer to Fausto and the rules of 2 minutes.
You can 30 seconds more. You can continue.
Okay. 28% of the clubs have not paid the rent or paid reduced rent, as well as other costs, utilities, 29%. In the United States, the webinars I've heard, people are saying, don't cut down on your marketing, but 21% of the German clubs said they're reducing their marketing spend. So I agree, we still need to be doing a good job of letting people know that we exist. And we're offering more than just the workouts, as John said. We should be focusing more on the mind and the spirit part, because people are getting depressed being by themselves. So I don't know if anybody's been doing this, but since we're on a Zoom call, I wonder if any clubs have used Zoom to communicate with their members in messages other than online workouts, just talking about things and how they can help. Meditation, attitude, positivity. We're going to get through this, and just being a good community builder using things like Zoom. Also.
Thank you, Hans. Okay, let's go now to the future. And Agusta, how do you imagine the future? What are you planning? What are you changing in order to meet the future?
Well, I have to say that I want to be optimistic for the future. Well, we will definitely reopen with restrictions. We know that for a fact, so we have to go slowly with 2 meters of social distance and limit to 100 people per area. So it's back to the situation we were before we had this complete restriction that we have now. But we are preparing. We want to be ready with strong marketing strategies and advertising, and like I said before, a lot of social media contact and direct mail to our members and so forth. I think it's very important, and I think maybe this is our chance in this industry to emphasize even more than ever before on getting everybody to exercise regularly and keep healthy, because what's the reality now is that people with underlying lifestyle diseases, such as diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease. Those are the people that are likely not to survive such a virus that's going on now. Also, obese people. What I've read about is they are more also likely to die from coronavirus. So I think what we've all been trying for decades is to get more people active, and still there's low percentage of people really exercising regularly. Now is the chance to really get this word out globally, and I think also to try to get the governments of countries to support this by working with health clubs with prevention. And I think there's a lot of opportunities in this, and this will of course save lives and money for the governments. So they should be interested in that. And we've already started working on this thought with our newsletters and our contact with our community and social media and so forth. And I think what's going to change it is that I think people will be running to the clubs when they open, and I think they will want to become more healthy after this pandemic situation.
Thank you. Han, what's your view?
Yes, I have some same feedback like Agusta, but I can add some things. What I think, everybody has the energy and loves to come back to the gym, but it takes some time that people feel confident to work out in groups. That will take some time. So I think starting with small groups, I think personal training is becoming more popular. It depends how long we are closed, but if people working out outside or behind the screen, it will also take some time to change their behavior. So I don't know, but what I'm thinking that we all become more aware of time, and more aware of their bodies, and more aware of the space. And if I see this in the future, I think it's maybe good to spend more energy and investments in activities like yoga, retreats, meditation. So I think that's some things where we think about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Ross.
Thanks, Fausto. To echo some of the points made earlier, I think the rush, especially in Asia, that we're seeing towards digital fitness, there's been a huge spawn of operators trying to get any content out to market quickly. Some of it is good and some of it is bad. I suppose looking forward to the positives, actually, I think we'll see a rise in the standard of digital fitness and online classes. I also think we'll see an adoption by the traditional member to want to have a hybrid membership, in which case they have both physical classes and physical access, and also access to online streams, perhaps once a week. Interestingly, I think when people now are wanting maybe a more holistic wellness experience rather than a specific vertical across fitness, and the gyms and operators that manage to provide that, coming back to Hans' point about perhaps an hour meditation class or an hour of nutrition coaching or an hour of breathing, could actually win some really good business off the back of that. What we haven't saw yet actually is content collaboration, and I think that's the next step when it comes to digital fitness, whether it's operator collaborating with operator or whether it's operator with brands. We're interesting to see how that materializes as well. The last point I would make is what we're probably going to see when members come back to clubs is a huge drop off in retention. And with that, I think we'll start to see a larger adoption in the trialing process of AI-based technologies for club retention and engagement, because people are going to start to realize that they were quite unsuccessful in some of their strategies for member retention over the course of this crisis.
Thank you very much. Justin.
I'd like to second what Agusta said. I think in 31 years of being in the fitness industry, I've never heard international governments ever use the word exercise as a solution to improving health. I think it's incredibly, just the fact that exercise is raising to prominence in government language is just phenomenal. And that we're being given permission to exercise is really damn exciting. And I think every association in every country must take this lead and start lobbying the government for healthcare packages that relate back to gyms. I think it's exciting. But I think bringing it back to the clubs, my prediction is that we can expect that whatever percentage of your members that did not use your club 3 months ago will not come back. So if those people weren't in your gym in the last 90 days, I don't think they'll come back. I also don't expect the remainder to return in less than a 12-month period. I think it's going to take you 12 months to get back to a fair chunk of members. So this means you really need to get your head around operating a business with less members over the next 12 months compared to where you were right now. And I know that might sound pessimistic, but I think I'm not here to try to blow smoke. I'm here to help you guys get organized and get ready for the time to come. And the reality is you will not have the same number of members as you had a month ago. I agree with Ross and I'm sure others on the panel that we're going to be offering a hybrid of face-to-face and a virtual offering. I don't believe it will be face-to-face or a virtual offering. It'll be and a virtual offering. But the challenge for this offering will be, what are you charging now for that virtual offering? Because if you're giving it away for free, then it's going to be really difficult to start charging or add any value to this when you want to start charging. I think we'll see 40, 50, maybe even 60% of personal trainers change industries. I don't think they may come back. In fact, I joke that it's the Darwinian principle working in our industry, where the fit will continue to, or the good personal trainers will continue to do well, but the poor ones will end up on the scrap heap. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think that, again, is a reality. What I do also think is many personal trainers will return to being employed rather than paying rents. I think they'll want the security of having a job and having a team around them to support them rather than them thinking about the never-ending dollar. So I think it's going to be quite exciting to have trainers who want to be part of our team, follow our culture, and be part of what we're trying to achieve. I don't actually think we're going to see any government regulations come in around cleanliness of clubs or how we should operate. But I do think that consumers are going to want confirmation that your clubs are clean. And I think the challenge will be around this social distancing in clubs. For example, what does that look like in a cycle studio moving forward? What does it look like in a Pilates room? We talked about group fitness, and even how close is our cardiovascular equipment going to be? And then if we take all that into account, for the last, I don't know, Ross, what do you reckon? 3 years, we've been talking about boutiques offering an experience. When we start to have social distancing in boutiques, how will that impact that experience when people come back into what they were used to, and now there's social distancing. We haven't got that peloton like a cycle experience. So it's going to be really, really interesting, I think, to see. And the businesses that are the most dynamic, the ones that can move and adjust as quickly as possible, will be the ones that will be successful.
Thank you, Justin. Matthew.
Thanks, Fausto. Yeah, to build on some of the comments, I certainly think health and wellness will mean something different to people. Certainly the statistics in the US is there's about 40% of the population that are obese, which means they're technically sick, and anything like this is going to affect people like that first. So this education, working with governments, I think is really important, and I certainly do think, although in certain markets the government, I believe, pay lip service to the importance of the health and fitness sector, I think now more than ever it's important that that we all collectively do what we can to put together some sort of prevention strategy in place, and I think this will get more people looking at fitness other than it just be some place and somewhere you go to get a six-pack. So I think that's really important, and certainly in this in the quiet times, it's an important opportunity to think about how that will look like and how that can be used to benefit a lot of the small businesses that are suffering at the moment. I think the second thing is there will be change, as we've all identified, and the the rules around fitness and people's habits and behaviors are going to be different, and I think that is going to create a sort of an inside outside, meaning within the walls of a fitness club and then within the home. But I think we've known about this for a long time. We've seen it coming. I've certainly been on panels where people have spoken about this for a number of years. So it's not really a surprise. It's probably just caught a few of us off guard. And so I think, considering what that will look like and how you can adopt a strategy. And as John said, making sure that strategy fits your values, that you're not trying to go outside of your core business and operate in a place where you're exposed is, how can you use where your strengths are and as Ross mentioned, collaborate with other people to bring in those parts that you don't do and have a very rounded offering. But it's something that needs to happen. It's something we've known about for a long time, and it's a great opportunity to give consideration to how you can evolve your business, which is something that we should all be doing anyway. And then the third thing I think is trust. I speak to Brian O'Rourke a while ago about this, and trust in companies and governments is at an all-time low. And I think when we're going through this situation, people want to be able to look at leaders and businesses, and they're looking to decide where to place their trust. And I think it's a great opportunity for the fitness industry to do what many people do well and tell the right kind of story. There's a lot of bad press associated with fitness, the get fit quick, six-pack in 60 days and all that rubbish. But there's a lot of people that have some great information, some great messaging. They can certainly advise the governments about what we should be doing. And I think it's really important for business leaders to think about how they can get this message out, how they can be on, whether it's on TV at the moment, or, they can have a voice during this period. And I think, expanding that to your community of people that you deal with is thinking about how the traditional bricks and mortar club can create these communities, because the boutiques have done it extremely well, and they'll probably be able to evolve on that side of things a lot better than some of the sort of older, more mature clubs. But I think, considering how you can create this digital community outside of your club with people that you communicate with on a regular basis, they trust you, and it doesn't just happen within the four walls. Thanks.
Thank you, Matthew. Hans or John?
John?
John.
No, after you, Hans.
Okay. I think that there's going to be a big change in what we think we're offering, what we're going to be selling. I think that nutrition is going to become a big thing. These 3 months where the people have been at home, they've been lazy, they're getting fat, the fridge has been their friend because they've been bored. And so there's going to be programs like Transformation, a 12-week program, an 8-week program for 200, for 300. People will want and need solutions to get back to where they were, to what they have lost. And if we're able to use this opportunity to say there's a window there where I think people will be prepared to pay more than what we think they've been willing to pay. The book by Emma Berry, Building a Badass Boutique, should be required reading for all normal clubs to be able to build on the learnings and the best practices of boutiques, to have a boutique experience in normal clubs. I think that benefits should be sold more than features. Improving the immune system. If you're healthy, if you're taking your vitamins, you will be less likely to get hit by the coronavirus. There will be winners and losers in our industry. There will be people that won't make it. There will be people, maybe like Han, who've got some cash there that can pick up assets for maybe 15, 20 cents on the dollar. So I think that there are still people that will be winning. There will be digital membership options that have been mentioned. And I think that there's still going to be a great future for our industry because health will be even more important due to this coronavirus than before. John?
Thank you. Very good, very good. Thank you. John, and then we go to the end with question and answer.
Okay, thanks first though. Thank you, Hans. A lot of talk about cleanliness, and I can tell you before all this happened, we did a survey of analysis of 8 million member feedback comments, and the number one thing members talked about before this happened was cleanliness. Okay, so that's not going to change. It's still going to be there. The only difference I think you'll find in terms of that is, even though it was the number one thing of 8 million, if you just took men, the number one thing men talked about was fitness equipment. And I think cleanliness may actually be higher than fitness equipment for men now, just probably for a short period of time. Then I think it's very important that you know what your members want, and that's going to be more important than ever. If you are reopening, make sure you're consulting with your members. And on that note, the clubs and organisations who again are very clear and very consistent and very close to their heroes are going to have a much better idea on how they can deliver what their members want. And yes, I do think it will include, like Ross said, more AI and genuine virtual reality. Okay, I think that will be more of the offering. But again, those who position themselves with the right platforms to deliver it will do better than others. Okay, and I also think we're going to see a lot of help, like JT touched on, from the government and also from employers. I think there's going to be a switch from seeing public services as a liability in terms of investment. I think governments and employers will go back to seeing public services as a genuine investment that's going to give big returns. And I think health is going to be much higher on the agendas of governments, and that has got to be a big bonus for our industry.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go now to your questions. Gabriella, over to you. Can you select just, because you don't have too time, just 1 or 2 questions? Just a moment, I give you the, okay.
Thank you. Yes, I will address the one that was that we received, and it was about what addition, in addition to live sessions, other ideas to keep your members engaged. In fact, that was before you gave some input, and Agusta talked about newsletters, Ross talked about digital solutions, Justin gave 3 ideas, and John talked about quizzes and recipes and sharing. So you've all answered the question actually. So I'll go down to the next one that we had, and it's about, do you think your business strategy will change after reopening? And if so, how? Like new products and services and membership models. So you have already touched on that, but John, what would you say? Do you have anything to add to whatever you have already given with the new products and new services that you might be offering after the reopening?
But for me personally, I think it's very important that you're asking what people want in terms of new products and services. You know, it's a bit like someone told me the story. They felt like this whole thing was like, have you ever been late for a train and you dash and you run onto the platform, you see the train, you jump on it, it pulls out, and you realise you've got on the wrong train and it's going somewhere else.
Yeah, in fact, actually, Elizabeth, who's the one that asked the question, said my question has been answered. Thank you.
Yeah.
In that case, I've got something else to maybe suggest to you, which is what do you think will be the new customer profile? I mean, for example, you've talked already about things like, Justin, you said something about in the next 12 months, quite realistically, people should expect the numbers to drop. And also, for example, you talked about nutrition, you all did, Hans, and talked about meditation and yoga, and the hero members to keep in touch with, holistic approach. However, do you think that in this scenario, do you envisage a new area of the market opening up in terms of customer profile? Does it give you the opportunity to have a new market that will compensate for the loss of the ones that will not come back straight away? Ross?
I think in Asia, probably as close to the rest of the world, we've got a quite immature market here, Gabriella. There's still no concepts or products or services offered for the older generations. So at the moment in time, you have anybody over the age of 50 with very few products or facilities that really suit their needs. Maybe a question we should all reflect on after this is there a platform or service that we can start to build to help engage people that really need to get more health and wellness into their lifestyles? They are certainly now going to be used to communicating digitally. So perhaps maybe a digital offering, or at least some type of gym facility that allows more senior citizens to get healthy and well. So for me, that's a massive boom market that's not been touched on. And hopefully in the coming years and months, we'll see some progress there.
Right. Matthew, do you think there is a new market, possible new market opening up?
Yeah, I think there is, but I like John's comments, and I think what you've got to do more than ever now, and again, these are basics that we should all be doing, but probably have to admit that we could do better. It's just really understanding who your target audience is and could be. You know, how because I think in a lot of cases you see communications and communities that people try and build up, and it's very general, and you know, when you talk about things like, I think maybe Hans mentioned it, but you know, having groups of members where you're sharing interests and talking about recipes, and that's very easy to do if you've got a really tight knit community that shares the values that you do, and you continue to build on those. But I think if you're a particular type of brand and you're saying, well, look, let's suddenly look at the older population because there's a great opportunity there, it's going to be very difficult to make that shift, as people have already said. So I think what you've got to do is understand, you know, really at your root, who is your target demographic, and then maybe think of how you can kind of expand that circle. But I think in most cases you could probably do a lot better at really addressing the needs of your customers, and in some cases you may have to get on the phone and understand who they are now for the first time, you know, try and figure out who they are, and then start understanding. I spoke to somebody a couple of weeks ago, but you know, start understanding what is going on with them at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning. The fact that, you know, it could be a 35-year-old lady with a couple of children that she's trying to sort out at home schooling, and she's thinking about what to eat, and she wants to fit in a workout. You know, that is relevant communication and how to enter their lives, as opposed to try and get them to enter your life. So I think it's really about personalization and doing things that we should have been doing, but doing them a lot better than what we probably have been, if we're honest with ourselves.
Thank you very much. So, Gabriella, I think we have come to the end.
Right.
And so you will collect all questions,
yeah,
and send back to all the attendees, right?
That's fine. Yes, that's right.
Okay, guys. So I'd like to thank you all the attendees and all the speakers for joining us today. And let's meet again on Monday 20. With other 7 great speakers from all around the world. Thank you again, and for your support.